Hey guys, what is going on? It's Gats. Today we are going to be taking a quick peek at the various Covenant abilities for Death Knight and their applications for Two-Handed Frost. Now there's going to be a bunch of these videos. They should be hopefully a little shorter than most, because I'm just going to very quickly go through the pros and cons of each Covenant ability, as well as the unique ability that you get for the various classes. So just let me adjust the music here real quick. There we are. Alright, so taking a quick peek here, we're going to look at Bastion first. And do keep in mind that this here is, of course, looking at the current build of Shadowlands Beta as of the 7th of September 2020. So there could be some changes in the very near future. So first up, we have Shackled the Unworthy. This is the Bastion class ability for Death Knight. It hits your target, and it reduces the damage that they deal to you by 5% while also dealing arcane damage over 14 seconds. While Shackle the Unworthy is active on an enemy, each rune spent with attacks reduces its cooldown by 4 seconds. So while you have a Shackle active period, it doesn't matter if it's on your target or not. Every rune you spend is going to refresh this ability's CD. This is a pretty strong ability in general. Whether or not it's going to be the top, we won't know until they do a little bit more tuning, because right now there is one that's way ahead, and unfortunately it isn't Shackle. I actually really like Shackle in general. Now, the Covenant ability itself is Summon Steward. This gets you a little buddy who... Oh, I guess it's not going to go. We'll try it here. There we go. Looks like we had to put it on a bar. This little guy will come up. He will give us some Files of Serenity, which give us 20% health, remove all debuffs on you as well. Actually incredibly useful, as this is outside of the standard potion cooldown as well. But that's about all he does. You know, there's some other stuff you can unlock with them, but for the most part, you're just kind of on your own. So this Shackle ability here, we're going to go ahead and just toss this onto the Raiders Trainer dummy. And you can see there's a visual effect there. It's big and glowy. Does a little bit of damage. See, it's sticking for like 200 or so. Does about 200 DPS at max level at current item level of about 138. This is one of those abilities that is really good, especially if you are going to be playing a rune-heavy spending build, which Two-Handed Frost absolutely is. And that's definitely something to keep in mind. So the ability's pretty good, but it's not the top, unfortunately. Now, moving over here to Night Fae, this is the ability that's kind of a boogeyman right now. We're going to go ahead. This here shows the nifty armor that makes you look like you're wearing a wooden costume, which is kind of strange for a Death Knight. The most powerful thing about the Night Fae is that it has Soul Shape, which turns us into a Vulpin, and it lets us go ahead and just gives us some more mobility. It's a 50% movement increase. It lasts for 12 seconds. Or if you're in an area that is a rest area, like Ouroboros here, it actually lasts indefinitely, which is pretty crazy, until you decide to cancel it. While you're in that Vulpin form, you can use the ability again during that 12 seconds to actually, jump a little bit forward. It's kind of like a mini blink. But this isn't the big ability that is, totally crazy. The big one is actually Death's Due. Death's Due replaces your Death and Decay. It doesn't say that on the ability, which a lot of people really were just absolutely confused by. But whenever you go and you select it, it'll actually replace Death and Decay on your bar. So let's go ahead. We're going to test the Night Fae abilities there. And as you can see there, it replaced Death and Decay with Death's Due. What this does is it gives us a ground effect AoE that's just like Death and Decay, except that it now does damage over time in 10 seconds within the area, which is normal, as well as enemies deal 1% reduced damage to you, up to a maximum of 15%, and you actually get a stacking strength buff for every enemy that you hit with it, and every time it ticks. So if I drop it on just one of these here, we'll just show you here, we're going to put on just that enemy there. Every time it ticks, I think we have to be in combat too, though. There we go. Huh. It's actually not going to give me... Alright, so it doesn't look like it works on the training dummy the way that I'd wanted it to. But the thing to keep in mind is that will give you a stacking strength buff up to 15%, as well as reducing all damage that you take from everything affected by it by 1% per tick, and it just keeps stacking and stacking. Frost is the only spec that doesn't have quick access to Death and Decay. For Blood Decay, they'll basically be able to have a near 100% uptime because of the way the spec interacts with its Death and Decay ability. Frost will have it as essentially a small burst cooldown that you'll want to time in with your Pillar of Frost so they match up, and they will actually end up working out really well together. Same thing with your Empower Rune weapon, they kind of end up together pretty well for the most part as well. But that is currently the strongest ability purely because of the improved strength you get, which those of you who have checked out Two-Handed Frost know that Pillar of Frost gets you 20% strength, plus 1 additional percent for every rune you spend while Pillar of Frost is active. And then, of course, you've got the effects of Empower Rune Weapon, which lets you attack faster and get you more resources during that window. In general, it's a crazy spread of additional damage, which is just really ridiculous. So right now, of course, Night Fate is the top pick for the moment. That could change. We're expecting tuning to tone it down a little bit, because it actually is kind of broken. So we're going to take a peek at Venthyr here. Here's that amazing armor for Venthyr. The Venthyr armor is really cool looking. It gives us access to Dwarf Shadows. This is the Covenant ability itself. It basically gives you a teleport. It's actually a pretty decent range. It's a 35-yard teleport away from you. So this will let you skip mechanics. It'll let you skip all sorts of fun things. There's actually some group skips you can use this for in certain dungeons to actually jump past certain groups, or to kind of get to another level of an area without having to run the whole way around. It's really awesome. It basically works just like, if you guys have played Overwatch, Reaper's teleport that he has. Very, very similar. Now the class ability is Swarming Mist. It's 1 rune on a 1-minute cooldown. It puts a heavy mist around you. You get 10% dodge, which is incredibly strong for Blood Death Knight. It deals 210 shadow damage every second to enemies within 10 yards over that 8-second duration. And every time it deals damage, you get runic power, up to a max of 15 runic power. Now that is incredibly strong. Very quickly you're going to get 15 runic power just from popping this, especially if you're tanking in a dungeon, or even a raid. I mean, you're going to get a steady amount of runic power, plus that dodge, little extra damage. It's incredibly useful. Now this one is probably the number 2 right now, kind of tied with the ability from Bastion. They're very close power-wise. Will definitely be super strong, especially if they tone down Death's Due. In general, the Venthyr is really good, but it's especially good for Blood Death Knight. But for Frost, it's fairly mediocre, because you really don't need to dodge, and it's dealing shadow damage instead of frost damage. Now, coming over here and checking out the Necrolords, this armor set here is absolutely incredible. This is probably the coolest plate set, in my opinion. Some people will disagree and say the Venthyr is, but I really like this one here. Now, your signature ability here, the Covenant ability, is Fleshcraft. It's a 2-minute cooldown. This gives you a big absorb shield for up to 20% of your maximum health for 2 minutes. When you channel it near a corpse, it'll actually steal a bit of their vitality, their essence, to grow the shield up to 50% of your max health. This is effective. This is most effective against powerful enemies. So whenever you are using it, whenever you're running this in a dungeon, you get a big AoE pull down. You want to pop Fleshcraft, and you're going to get a massive shield, an absolutely massive shield, and that shield will last for up to 2 minutes. Now, for the most part, that's going to be gone pretty quick once you run in and you start tanking other mobs, but that's a massive amount of healing that you get from it. So again, could be incredibly powerful, but the class ability for Death Knights from Necrolord is kind of weird. So, Abomination Limb. This is a 20-yard range instant on a 2-minute cooldown. You get a big arm around you. Every 1 second, it deals shadow damage to all nearby enemies and will pull an enemy to your location if they're further than 8 yards from you. Now, what this will do is it'll pull, as far as I know, only things that are in combat at this point in time. I could be incorrect. It could also pull things that are not in combat with you, which could be incredibly dangerous. But this ability looks really, really awesome. I definitely want to show you guys what it looks like, because it's a really neat ability. Let's see, that is the tanking dummy. We don't want to go to that one. we're going to go over here. So we're going to drop our Death and Decay just to drop that, and then we're going to go ahead and pop Abomination Limb. Now, I love calling this thing Slappy Hand, because it's basically just a bunch of hands slapping around. Deals a bunch of damage. As you can see there, it's dealing about 800 DPS with 2 targets. It's very powerful indeed. I mean, it absolutely scales with your strength. Does a bunch of damage. And it's also shadow damage, which is very attractive when you're talking about potentially playing it as Unholy. As Frost, it's really not all that attractive, though, and again, Death 2 is just way better for most purposes. Now, of course, the shield here, we're going to go ahead and pop that so you can see it. Very cool, visual effect. But, in general, probably not what we want, because our Covenant ability as a Death Knight, we absolutely need some kind of movement. So that really restricts us to probably playing either Night Fae or going with Venthyr for that teleport. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick look here, this little video. If you liked the video, be sure you like it. If you didn't downvote it, let me know in the comments why you didn't like it. That way I can go and I can improve the videos here. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.